Hey guys, welcome into the podcast, Bear With Us podcast to be specific. I don't know why I didn't put it in the bear. I've done it, whatever. I'm just going to get into a whole. I'm already losing the words now. I'm Jack, he's Frank. Awesome start to this podcast. But we appreciate you guys tuning in as always. We, Frank, are going to be discussing the Bears and the Eagles game, and then, of course, doing a little preview of the Bears and Bills game, which I will not forget this week when we do our picks. Almost forgot last week. Not that it ultimately mattered, but
yeah, exactly.
Frankie, how are we feeling today? We feeling good?
We are feeling good until I sat down and looked at the schedule to make picks today, and I realized that the whole league's playing on Saturday. What the fuck is going on, Jack?
They gotta respect the sanctity of Christmas, Frank. All right,
It's time. You know what? It's time to put Christ back in Christmas, Jack. Okay. I was watching fucking Tucker last night, and could you believe it? There's a war on Christmas.
There's always a war on Christmas every year. How dare we tolerate that other cultures exist and celebrate similar holidays? But you know, it is what it is, I suppose. Frankie, this is an interesting start to this podcast, and I kind of love it. The Bears, Frank, lost once again. They lost 25-20 at home against the Philadelphia Eagles. Why not give some numbers? I feel like we don't give enough statistics on this podcast. Justin Fields was 14-21, 152 yards, 2 touchdowns. Nathan Peterman, 0 for 1. He came in for a play and threw the ball to Nasimba Webster, because that's where that moment where Nathan Peterman was throwing to Nasimba Webster took me right back to what it must have been like 2015, 2016. When we were running out there with Josh Bellamy as the number 1 target, and just a bunch of garbage running around.
Bellamy would be the number 1.
Oh, okay.
without Claypool and Mooney. I mean, he's like maybe Pringle's a slot guy though. It's hard to even say, but like he's better than EQ. This is legitimately the worst receiving core.
It's bad. It's bad. And yeah, rushing totals. Justin ran for 15 times for 95 yards. He broke the 1,000 rushing yard mark, which is absolutely incredible. Just an absolute great season from him. Should have had a touchdown, honestly. Should have had one.
Jack, but do you remember in the offseason, I said they need to implement a greatness rule, where if that is the greatest shit you've seen with your own 2 eyes, you have to give him. You have to.
I don't care where he stepped out of bounds.
Especially because it wasn't like if the whole foot is out, all right, I get it.
Yeah, but if the toe.
That was a pinky toe. His pinky toe, his cleats were a little too small. His pinky toe was like out of it and just like touched the line barely. What are we doing?
Yeah, that was bad. I'm not even going to bother with the receiving totals because it's just not worth it. The whole thing is just an absolute mess. But Frank, Justin finished with 115-yard passer rating. And I really enjoyed talking with a couple of Packers fans this week who I believe listen to the podcast. And apparently, Frank, I did not know this, but apparently if the receiver is wide open, it doesn't count as a touchdown for the quarterback. I didn't know that. I did not know that.
Yeah, no, that's been a thing actually since week 1 of this year. They just implemented that this year.
That's weird.
It doesn't count on your stats. It doesn't count on your PFF grade. None of it counts. So what we could do is almost like retroactively, like you remember, like before the sack was a thing, like there would be a different sack leader. I forget who it was, but he gets brought up quite a bit. You would take away like half of Aaron Rodgers' touchdowns, but thank the Lord in heaven that that rule wasn't implemented prior to 2022.
That's a good point. Yeah, because I mean, God forbid, that touchdown he threw to Randall Cobb didn't count. Because he was wide open.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, man, it's all sarcasm aside. I mean, it's just the criticism. I love. There's something very funny to me about Packers fans who've celebrated 40 years of great quarterback play, seemingly just entire lifetimes worth of great quarterback play, And the Bears fans are just trying to enjoy not even a full season at this point of a guy who may become their best quarterback in franchise history, and they're like, they just can't just can't stand for that. They refuse.
I mean, it's just weird. It's like, I get why Bears fans generally hate the Packers organization because they kicked our ass.
Yeah.
As a Pat, like, yeah, I would. It would. It's so weird to me that they're that way towards us as well. Like it's flipped, and I've sort of felt. I think I've used this comparison. It's like the Cubs and White Sox. Like the Cubs are the big brother in Chicago in terms of baseball. So I get why White Sox fans hate the Cubs organizations, because no matter what they do, they're never going to be what the Cubs are to the city. But when there's Cubs fans that hate the White Sox, I'm just like, why? And I'm a Cubs fan. So it's like, I'm trying to put myself in those shoes. I'm like, why? Why do you hate? And it's not like I like the White Sox or I would ever like go out of my way to root for them, but I'm also not going out of my way to like root against them. They're in a different league, or they're in a different, they're in the AL. And it's like, so I guess the divisional rivals, I get it, but you guys have beat us. You guys beat us all the time since.
I think Frank, I think it's I think there's a case of like a nexus point, honestly, where it's like we've hit the point where the Bears may have an ascending quarterback, while for the first time in a very long time, there's going to be some serious questions about their quarterback position, whether it's next year or the year after. I think that probably plays into it a little bit.
Maybe, but I mean, even like when
they
Mitch
were like this with Mitch, I was going to say.
That's what I was just going to say. And then when Jay was there and they were still beating us, it's like, where is this angst? Like, I get it during the matchup talking shit. Absolutely. Do your thing. You guys are the big brothers. But the angst afterwards and like in off seasons and like, why? Like, you guys own us. Like, it would be a better trump card if you were to not even like, oh, that's cute, you guys are mad about us. Like, and that's why I hate the Cardinals, because that's the way Cardinals fans act towards the Cubs, because they've not historically, but prior to 2016, they owned us, and they would just be like, oh, that's cute. Looking at the wild card, like we just won 3 World Series in the last 6 years. And it's like, fuck you, man. But like that's like the trump card and the Packers fans don't ever do that, and they're like stupid.
Yeah. We can leave it at that. Packers fans are stupid. You've heard it on the Bear With Us podcast from Frank specifically, not Jack. So don't get mad at me about that. But Frank, we do want to talk a little bit about this Eagles game because, it wasn't the most – it was a weird game. Like the rhythm I thought was really thrown off, obviously, at the beginning with, the kickoff being taken back, and then, you had all the penalties, and then obviously a lot of injuries going on. Teven Jenkins being taken out of the game just indefinitely, but it sounds like he's day-to-day with a neck injury, which is obviously great to hear. Jack Sanborn will miss the rest of the year due to an ankle injury, which is unfortunate, but not. If it was gonna happen, I'm fine with it happening now, because we know he's a starter next year. Like, regardless if I'm not saying he's gonna be, Brian Urlacher or a linebacker of that caliber, but he's a guy you can plug and play. Like, I mean, he chased down Jalen Hurts. Frank, I
was just going to say, Jack, I just made the point like 2 weeks ago. It's about that time where we stopped judging him on, he's really good for a non-drafted guy, an undrafted guy. He is good, man.
Yeah.
And it was the point that I made in that same, in that same vein of like, the knock on him was that he isn't fast. And it's like, okay, maybe he didn't run the fastest 40, but I have yet to see him look slow on the field versus like, remember when Nick Kwiatkowski was here, I didn't want to resign him because he looked slow. He played slow.
He was one direction. He was run him downhill.
Dude, Sanborn just got game speed. I mean, he chased down Jalen Hurts. I mean, you could have just been like blind, or like, you remember like back in the day on Mortal Kombat when the whole character was like blacked out and you didn't know who it was. Like, you could have done that and you would have known if that was Roquan in 2018 or Jack Sanborn. Like, he was that fast on that play. Like, I mean, he's the starter next year. There is no ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah, like I said, I thought, if it's gonna happen, at least I guess it happened this late where we've seen enough, and late enough in the game too, where it's like we saw some really great plays from him.
And the good thing too is that it's an ankle. That's not something that should linger too much. I mean, did they actually diagnose it as a high ankle sprain? I don't know what it was.
I believe it was a high ankle sprain.
Yeah, so he'll be fine come off season program. He's good to go. The one that was the most concerning that's obviously like pretty much immediately after the game, they're like, oh, we're not as worried, was the Teven Jenkins one.
Yes.
I still don't, I don't know if they're just bullshitting though, Jack. I mean, he was like immobilized for a little while and got carted off the field. That was scary. How do you go from that to like, oh, he's day to day? That
I don't know if it's I originally thought, I remember texting you, I thought it was his back at first, because I mean, like when he went down, he was kicking his legs like he couldn't, like I was surprised it was his neck. Maybe he got hit in the neck or something. I don't know. I agree with you. It's a little strange that like the way he reacted when he went down, I was like, oh, this is not good. But then like the broadcast was also really weird, because they, Frank, were like lingering on it, and then they're talking about the injury, and then like out of nowhere the music comes in, kicks in, and then they go to break, and it was like at the end, like they were already getting guys off the field. It was like, I don't know, that broadcast to me, Frank, was just a mess. And for the love of God, can we stop getting the same two guys, Joe Davis and Daryl Johnston, every single game?
They're bad. But again, that's a reflection of where we're at.
I know.
That's like their D team, and that's what they do. Because do you remember? And I actually grew to love it. Was it last year? I think it was last year when we got like Aqib Talib for 4 straight games. But he was at least entertaining though. I enjoyed that. Yeah.
Give me someone with a little moxie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a little bit of like I guess I should ask for that, because I was watching the Colts Vikings broadcast this past week on Saturday. Nate Burleson is not good. He's a little too like a little too cheesy, a little too cornball-y.
Yeah,
I wasn't.
But I feel like not very many people have got that balance down. The greats do, and actually someone that I think has gotten there has been Mark Sanchez. I enjoy his commentating. I think he is what everyone thought Romo was when everyone was in love with Tony Romo. But it's like that fine line of like, all right, have a little bit of dad humor or whatever type of humor that you have,
sure,
but then also like it doesn't feel like scripted, like you practiced it in the mirror 10 times, where a lot of the newer guys have that. Like it just feels like too overly produced.
I want RG3. Give me RG3 on one of these games. I like him.
That would be good.
He's good. Frank, I do want to stick on the defense a little bit as well. We're talking about the great play that Jack Sanborn made, but I think, just as difficult as this day was, you think about the receivers that Justin Fields was throwing to, especially when Equanimous St. Brown left the game with a concussion. The rest of the guys out there wasn't really a whole lot. And that was another thing too. I saw a lot of Bears fans like upset about the passing numbers for Justin Fields, and honestly throughout the whole game, where they're just blaming him about this and that. But I would say the defense was actually arguably the highlight of that game. Obviously the Eagles were going to make some plays, but the run defense I thought was really, really good. Like Miles Sanders did fucking nothing, which I was absolutely. I mean, that to me was almost more of a product of the Eagles just doing this weird thing they do where they just forget they have one of the best running backs in the league. And yeah, that's a fantasy comment. Don't worry about it. But you look at like Jalen Johnson. I could have watched him and AJ Brown go at it all day. That was incredible. That was some incredible stuff, man. What do you think about Jalen?
I thought Jalen played very well. There was only 2 receptions of AJ Brown's where he was pretty uncontested, and I don't remember off the top of my head. I usually take notes, but it's so late in the year where I'm just like I don't fucking care as much anymore. I don't know if that was Jalen Johnson on him. Those 2 may have been Jalen Jones, or at least one of them may have been Jalen Jones. But I thought both of the corners, Jack. I thought they both looked really good. When we talked last week, because we've been getting upset, and I think that's the one thing, peek behind the curtains, listeners. We've been talking about what we want to talk about moving forward and whatnot. Grading Ryan Poles is going to be on that list, and that the draft is a huge thing because that, it's one of the few things he was able to do, in his first year. And I think we've been pretty upfront on this podcast of how much we didn't really like those 2nd-round picks, even in the moment, because we wanted more offensive weapons. But Kyler Gordon, he looked good as well. I thought both corners looked really. I mean, you think about some of the plays that, but even the plays that Devontae Smith made on him, that you can't ask for anything more out of a corner like that. Those are the plays that I need. Is you make it as hard as possible on this receiver to make those plays, and the great ones are just it's going to happen sometimes. Devontae Smith is a phenomenal receiver, so it was like even those I was like, man, like you're talking about a perfect throw, a perfect catch, and perfect defense, damn near. Like what more can you do? So that was really encouraging to see from those guys.
The interception was just a great play in general because, I mean, he tracked the ball all the way and just made a great play on it. And we've seen that a couple times where he's dropped a few of those, so it was nice to see him complete it. Jalen Jones, last couple of weeks, man, he's been playing really well. DeAndre Houston Carson, obviously, I think he's just a safe. That's why, man. I know Brisker had a solid game, but it's kind of why I just don't like that second round pick because you look at DeAndre Houston Carson just stepping. The guy's been on the team since 2016, and he just steps in and acts like it's no big deal and is making plays all over the field. Like it's why safety just was not very high on my positional need list.
Same.
Especially because Eddie is going to be back next year. He didn't need surgery, which is great news on his foot, so he's going to be ready to go as soon as they need him, which is great. That's fantastic. But man, you just look at safeties around the league. It just doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter. So and I guess it could matter if Jaquan Brisker is like a Minka Fitzpatrick safety or Buda Baker or literally one of the best in the league. But I don't know if Jaquan Brisker is going to be that, Frank. So overall, what I'm saying is secondary wise, yeah, maybe they add a veteran, another guy like who was Teven Young right in the offseason that obviously didn't pan out, but. Like a move like that, they don't need to spend big free agent dollars on safety. You don't need to draft another safety or, maybe they draft a corner in the 6th round now instead of the 4th round. I think they can do that because I think if Jalen Jones especially continues to progress, I think the secondary is serviceable for next season as long as
especially I totally agree, and especially with the priority on defense being the trenches. Like everyone, and even like I know people hate Kendall Vildor, but everyone will benefit from a better pass rush. Even though we got a little bit, I mean, this is the best pass. That's the best pass rush.
We got one.
The best that the pass rush has looked since
Thomas,
like before
with the big sack. And not for nothing, Trevis. I'm not going to say Trevis because I don't think that's right. Trevis Gibson.
But they've been calling him that for like 6 weeks now. Did he?
Maybe it is right. Maybe it is right. I don't know. But I don't know. He's just I don't know, Frank, if he's a natural pass rusher because he just looks like he's stumbling around all the time. He doesn't really know what he's doing out there. I don't know. It looked weird. But there was some pressure, though. I was surprised by that, especially against one of the best offensive lines in the league.
I know. They were up for the task. The defense played really, really well.
They held the Eagles to 25 points.
Right. And it fell apart, towards the end because the Bears, the offense just couldn't put together a drive. But yeah, overall, I mean, this was their best performance since Washington, when they held Washington to 12 points.
Yeah, and we've seen kind of that growth, especially at the secondary. We saw it against the Packers. So maybe this is more of things to come, which will be. I mean, they're going to be tested the rest of the season. They've got some really good quarterbacks remaining on the list: Josh Allen, Jared Goff, and Kirk Cousins. So we'll continue to see. Frank, let's really quickly shift over to the offense because I know there's not a ton to talk about there. But there is one big 25-year-old elephant in the room that we need to discuss, and that, of course, being Velus Jones. Man, Frank, he had 2 touches offensively, and he fumbles one of them.
Yeah.
And, I don't know how he's on the team next year. He's not their punt returner. He doesn't really do anything on the kickoff returns. It's a shame, Frank, because, again, this is one of those things that we talked about in the offseason when the draft pick was made. You and I weren't trying to make the age thing. Like, a lot of people were overblowing the age thing. We know that. But the thing about our side of it was, okay, it's fine that he's 25, but that means he needs to be a contributor right away because he's not likely to get a second contract with this team. He's looks like the most developmental piece on the field.
Yeah. And that's like my biggest stance on it is that, again, age thing, overblown, completely agree. But your floor has to be very, very high if you're drafted at that age. And his floor is just as low as any other rookie. I mean, we may as well have taken him in the 6th.
Yeah.
You know, and for as a developmental pick. Like, I mean, Dominique Robinson, who switched 7 positions in the last 2 years, and he looks better than him out there in terms of development. Like, what are we doing? We're like, you can't have someone out there. I mean, especially though, it's like the only thing that's bothered me about fans' reaction to some of this is they're like, oh, well, he was just a 3rd round pick. Like, what world are you guys living in? Cortland Sutton was a 3rd round pick. There are 3rd round picks that they contribute day 1 or at some point in year 1. And he has done nothing positive for this team outside of a 3-yard jet sweep touchdown that any other receiver on the team could have probably, got in on. Like, yeah, he's just like you said. I'm really at the point, unless he does something drastic these last few weeks, where we have done a disservice to this receiver room if he's still on this team next year. I don't mean like a addition by subtraction. I mean, it shouldn't be hard to find 2 or 3 more guys better than him and either get him down to the practice squad or just flat out cut him. He can't be on this team.
You kind of think about, sort of what we saw on Sunday, and you really think how many of these guys will be here next year. I think you can maybe make the argument for 2 of them.
Receivers?
St. Brown, I think, yes, receivers specifically. I think Equinemius St. Brown will be back. I think there's a chance Dante Pettis is back as your punt returner. I mean, the fact that Velus Jones hasn't taken over that position tells you all you need to know. He just doesn't do anything special. Like, yes, he's fast, but and Frank, I think there is some criticism that needs to be gone to Luke Getsy. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I did not like the way he was calling that game, especially in the second half.
Yep.
That 3rd and 1 drop back, that's shit we were grilling Matt Nagy for. And I think Luke Getsy deserves the same amount of criticism. That reminds me, Frank, of the Cleveland game from last year, where everyone just wanted Matt Nagy's head to roll. How are you? The Eagles have one of the best pass rushers, defensive lines in the league. Hassan Reddick is just dominating you. You leave fucking Cole Kmet on an island against. What are you doing? Why? This offensive line had 3 replacements? 2 replacements.
Yeah, 2.
And you still try to do a straight drop. And where is the moving pocket? Where is the rollouts? Where is the play action? I just don't understand what is happening with Luke Getsy's offense. Like, he had it figured out. And granted, figured out, they still scored 20 points. Like, that would have been, a fucking miracle in the Matt Nagy days. But, you think of Justin Fields and some of those throws, the sidearm throw to David Montgomery for the touchdown was great. The throw that people that I was referencing earlier, the Packers fans who were like, well, Byron Pringle was wide open. Justin Fields created that fucking play. What are we talking about here?
Yeah.
How many quarterbacks have we seen do that? Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, where they get out of the pocket, they run around, and they find a wide open guy because someone didn't give up on the play. Where is that Byron Pringle been, by the way? Making plays, creating things. Damn, man. It feels like all of the good stuff lately that this offense has done has just been Justin Fields making it up as he goes, as opposed to some of the great play designs we saw when Luke Getsy was on top of things.
Yeah, I agree. And quickly with the Packers thing, that was why I brought up Aaron Rodgers, because that's what he did in his prime. Mm-hmm. That's what he was the best at. And what made him deadly was that he wasn't like Russell Wilson, where he only relied on the backyard football. Is that if you took away his first couple of options, he had the ability to extend the play. So that was why I made that comparison earlier. But yeah, I agree with you, and that's actually a good segue, Jack. But really quick, I wanted to touch on a couple of the good things that I saw from Fields. He's starting to look at the check down a little bit sooner, which I love. He's that processor speeding up. He's looking, hey, 1, 2 ain't there. I'm either going to roll out and try to make some magic, or here's Montgomery. And he did it like 2 or 3 times. And the touchdown was one of them as well. Loved it. He's also stepping up in the pocket a lot more too. I love that. I absolutely love that. But the segue of, a lot of people were talking about Luke Getsy still, obviously, but just the culture as a whole that the coaching staff is instilling. Like, oh, they got this culture and like people are bought in. And I think there is a large degree of that happening. They only have 3 wins. They're not giving up. They're in these close games. They're fighting. So there's that element of it. But then I look and I'm like, man, how much of this is just Justin Fields being Superman? Right. And like willing his team to to keeping it 1 score versus like the coaching staff having like a good game plan, or just having the guys just, do what they need to do to like make it that way. And it feels like it's heavily skewed towards Justin Fields just being fucking Superman. Like this week, the defense played better. So there's that portion. You have to give credit to Eberflus and Allen Williams 100%. They're starting to develop these guys, and that's a good sign. So I guess I'm specifically talking about the offense. Like I hate to have this conversation so early, because the same sort of out that I give with Justin Fields in terms of statistics, we have to give a similar out to Luke Getsy, because you can't draw up everything that you want to with fucking Simba Web Stuff. It is what it is. So like,
I was going to say.
But we have seen great offensive minds. I mean, you even referenced it. Like we've seen him draw up amazing plays for guys like EQ. I mean, he had a couple good plays this week to EQ, and it was like, oh, EQ was wide open. That was a really good throw, really good play call. Where is that? But then it's not even like Kyle Shanahan blow your mind because 3 people are wide open, or Andy Reid. It's just like you said. It's like moving the pocket more. Where did that go? And it's like, then I turn on a Chargers game, and Herbert's out of the pocket 3 times a drive. On a 70-something yard drive, he's he's rolling out 3 or 4 times. And it's like, I don't know. There's sometimes it's like, I don't understand it, man. I really don't. Where like that common sense goes with him, with his play calling and his game planning.
Well, I think you bring up a really good point in terms of the Superman stuff, because there were a couple drives where the Eagles, I mean, I guess I didn't really think about it too much, but I mean, they have the perfect person to practice against when it comes to trying to defend Justin Fields running. Jalen Hurts, obviously, their games are very similar. And when that was shut down, like when Justin would run and he would only get like a couple yards, the drive was dead. They couldn't do anything because there was no one to throw the ball to. And Frank, this is something I really wanted to talk about because it was brought up a ton, and it, not surprisingly, we talked about this a lot, where it was, how are Jalen Hurts and Justin Fields going to be compared? Very similar games, but again, I think Justin Fields has the higher ceiling that Jalen Hurts does. But the biggest issue and it was very clear during the game, the Bears don't have Devonta Smith right now. They don't have that guy, and I'm not saying that is almost the perfect thing that we have talked about on this podcast, where it's a guy who's not a number one, because I don't think Devonta Smith was ever going to be a number one receiver. I just don't think he has that type of talent. Like, he was never going to be Justin Jefferson. But you bring in a guy who is a number one and you push him down a peg, I mean, that's a great duo to have. I mean, you see some of the things he's able to do in the middle of the field, and then A.J. Brown, obviously, is able to make the big plays happen, but the Bears they're not even close to that. Yeah. And to think that Justin Fields is going to take a similar type career arc as Jalen Hurts has, I don't know if you can say that, because we're still working on getting him a receiver. And it goes back to the draft. You watch fucking George Pickens, what he's doing with Mitch Trubisky, and it's like, dude, come on. How did we miss that? I just like if you draft George Pickens in the 2nd round and then name a name, I don't care who it is. A team's going to be looking to blow it up. The Colts, maybe you trade for Michael Pittman. I'm not saying Michael Pittman is A.J. Brown, but Michael Pittman would be a significant upgrade. You get a guy like that, boom, there's your your wide receiver group, man.
And I think it's an important distinction to make, or just an important point to make, is that I think people were upset with Poles for not like being in on Tyreek Hill and all this. And we touched on why it would have been silly to do that. Granted, the offense would be fucking insane to watch right now. But there aren't, AJ Browns and Tyreek Hills and things just growing on trees. These dudes are bona fide. There's only a few bona fide number ones, if we can keep it a buck. There's maybe 6 of them. So what you do when you don't have that is build an actual receivers, or just a receiving core. You build a whole room. You build 3 or 4 guys that can play off of each other, that have different strengths, that have hopefully not many weaknesses, but just different weaknesses as well, where you can sort of build that room and be very diverse and have a variety in your play calling. And that's what the Bears are going to have to do. If they find an absolute stud that just bails you out, DeAndre Hopkins, if he's out there, something like that, then absolutely you try to go for that. But it's not. And I at this point in his career, he may not even be a number one, like a bona fide guy. He's getting a little older. It's like even the guys that are, that window of you being a top 5 guy is tough, man. There's so many receivers out there. But again, we just talked about Devontae Smith would be like 3 times the receiver, including Claypool probably, and Darnell Mooney at this point. And we just said he's not like the guy. That's what you just said, and I'm inclined to agree. But that just shows you the levels to this. Yeah. Again, we can sit down and name the 6, maybe 8 guys who are like, these are the dudes. There's 32 teams. You know what I mean? Like, fuck, 2 of them maybe on the Dolphins. And so that leaves 6 more for you, or 5, or whatever the list is. So it's like they have to build a whole room. So anyone getting like hyper fixated on like, well, they need to trade for so-and-so, or they need to do this. If we can get that in the draft, that would be ideal. If you get like the guy, if we get a Justin Jefferson type, but like in terms of trading for one, that's not going to happen. It's just we're not in that position to go out and get, let's say Cooper Kupp is available. What are you going to trade? 2 first? And all, there's too many holes on this team. So like I want to temper everyone's expectation with that. We need to build this thing through the draft. And honestly, I mean, you look at what the Eagles did. I thought that was the one place where the broadcast did phenomenal. Yeah. What did they do in building this up? And then they traded back a few times, and that's how they were able to move up and get Devontae Smith, and they're able to do this, and they drafted this pass rusher, and they got this offensive lineman. But it all started because they hit on the quarterback. A little bit different because he was a second rounder. They didn't know he was the guy. And then they just started building around him. They kept trading back, and then so they can trade up if they needed to. I mean, we're in that position now. We have the number 2 pick. Well, hopefully we end with that, but number 2 or 3, there's a roadmap here, if you will, as to how to get this thing done. So like, even if that means adding another 24 first in the draft instead of this year, and you sort of move way down in the first, it is what it is. Like, there are too many holes for anyone to, be trying to give up a million picks to get one dude.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. I mean, there are a ton of holes. Now, granted, if they could, I don't even know if Cooper Kupp is like the fix all, because does he fit the offense? Is he a guy that can literally be in any offense? I don't know. It's kind of similar questions that come from the Tyreek Hill stuff. But I mean, you look around the league at quarterbacks, especially younger ones, who are succeeding. Like, you think about the wide receivers they have. Tyler Boyd would be our number 1 wide receiver, clear cut.
And it wouldn't be close, yeah.
And it wouldn't be close. But then Joe Burrow still has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to play with too.
Yep.
Like, you think of the Steelers, even Deontay Johnson and George Pickens now. Like, you look around the league and it's like, damn, like, fuck, man, even the Chargers. Right, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, like, there are a lot of good duos at these younger quarterback, and obviously Tua, the clear cut. He was the leading Pro Bowl getter at the quarterback position, which, I mean, that should tell you all you need to know about fan voting. We need to stop that. The fan voting is done. You can't tell me they watched Tua and was like, yeah, this is the guy.
They probably haven't, but even looking at the Chargers, Joshua Palmer would probably be our best receiver too.
He's good.
He's good. Maybe he's not as good as Claypool if we think he is who he is. Like, that's the whole point. There are number 3s on teams that are better than or potentially better than our number 1.
And Frank, this is where I'm going to throw some cold water on this conversation, because as exciting as it can be to talk about drafting receivers and trading for receivers, here's my biggest concern, Frank. I'm not sure if Ryan Poles knows how to find a good wide receiver.
I know.
Because look, you have the Velus Jones stuff is legit. He passed on 2 really good players, and I mean, I don't really think there's an argument against that. Alec Pierce, sure, he's not putting up number, but like, you just watch him play. That offense is obviously limiting him. And then he trades a super high draft pick, what will be a super high draft pick, for Chase Claypool, who even when he was playing wasn't really doing anything that was wowing us. And again, I know he came into the offense late. I understand that. Let's give him an offseason. But like, there was just something just so disappointing about him missing this game when they really needed him too.
Yeah.
After a bye week, like, that was the part where I was like, man, that's just fucking brutal. And again, this is going to be a very, very high draft pick. It sucks.
You know what though, Jack? You reminded me of the ultimate point that I was going to make, and I sort of lost my way because I was ranting there a bit.
Good.
That's what scares me in general about trading for a receiver. Other teams, notably the Packers, offered a 2nd-round pick for Chase Claypool. Hollywood Brown just went for a 1st last draft, did he not?
Yeah.
Are either of those 2 guys, is anyone in the league mistaking either of them, no matter how good you think they could be, as like a number 1 receiver? No. Absolutely not. So my point is, these receivers are fucking expensive, dude. Like paying a 2 for Claypool wasn't an overpay, no matter what 2 you paid, because that's just what the market is for receivers. This isn't me sticking up for Ryan Poles. It may go down as a bad trade because you need.
But he paid the price that. But
he paid the price for a receiver. So I'm sitting here thinking, like, even looking around the league, and we're going to do this exercise at some point in the offseason. Who could blow it up? Who could you take a chance on? Even someone like, spoiler alert, that may be available, Hunter Renfrow. Is he worth like a 3 after the season he just had? That's probably what he's going to go for if they trade him. Receivers just are very expensive right now. And like, that's the scary part. It's like, we just traded for one that, we can diagnose later if it was his fault, was it Getsy's fault? Who knows? We have all next year to continue to evaluate, but it just hasn't worked. What if that happens again and you traded another 2 or you traded a 1? Like the receiver, because again, like Hollywood Brown going for a 1, that threw me off in the draft, but it didn't click in my brain that receivers are just more expensive now.
He'd still arguably be our best receiver.
Oh, he would, but he's like,
he's not AJ Brown. He's not
AJ Brown, or he's not Tyreek Hill. If I'm trading elite capital, I need a guy. I need the guy.
But and again, like, this is where we're gonna really have to start looking for teams to trade back with, because you and I were kind of doing a little bit. I don't want to get too much into it on the right now, because I don't. It's going to be a whole other conversation that we can obviously have. Save it for other podcasts. But like, there's certain teams that maybe have multiple draft picks in this draft that we could trade back from to get top 7, and then a middle of the teens pick, and then gives you a little more flexibility, because I'm sorry, like, you have to draft a receiver in this draft. I don't care where it is. You have to, because Darnell Mooney's obviously hurt. You can't go into next year with Chase Claypool, Velus Jones, Equanimity. Like, you can't go in with the same thing. And again, there's not a lot else out there. Granted, I think I would be more okay with it than probably most people, but especially you. I know how much you dislike him, but Juju Smith-Schuster he'd make this receiver group a hell of a lot better. But again, that's not Tyreek Hill, right? That's not going to push you over the top, but it gives you a good weapon. You have to draft a receiver. And if you can draft one instead of at the end of the 2nd versus either top 6 or in the middle round, middle of the 1st round, you're getting, you just look at the guys who were drafted this year.
Yeah.
Drake London is a fucking Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jamison Williams, even.
Jahan Dotson.
John, it's just like you can't keep waiting. I don't understand. I just don't get the point.
I know. Well, I mean, this offseason is going to be telling. The one, you know what I was thinking about though, as you were saying that, I know a lot of people are talking about the trade up for the quarterback. What if the Lions wanted to trade up to number 2
for pass rusher
to get fucking Will? Imagine Will Anderson and
Hutchinson.
And Hutchinson. Why do I keep wanting to say Kayvon Thibodeau? I don't know why. Thibodeau just feels like a white last name, maybe. I don't know. Because of Tom. But holy shit! Could you imagine? I mean, why wouldn't you want to? You have to be sold on Jared Goff, of course, as the guy for another year or two at least. But holy fuck,
Jared Goff to me is not a guy I think that Dan Campbell would move on from for a rookie quarterback. I don't see Dan Campbell as a guy who's willing to develop because I think he believes they're win now. And granted, I mean, they've been playing a hell of a lot better.
They're not far from it.
No, I'd argue they're not. And if you do get that pass rusher duo.
Yeah. But
pretty good.
Yeah, you know what? Speaking of the Lions, Jack, we were talking about building receiver rooms. I don't think anyone they have is like a bona fide number 1. Amon-Ra St. Brown is phenomenal. He's very good. I don't think he's an X, but look at the way they built. Jameson Williams may wind up being that, but he just started to play, and he's added a whole new wrinkle to that offense. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the aforementioned, DJ Chark, 1 or 2 year deal, whatever he was, they all fit wonderfully. Look at those skill sets that they built together. Obviously, Amon-Ra continues to ascend, so that helps. Like we didn't have that in Darnell.
We didn't have a 5th round pick. Yeah, we didn't have a 5th round pick with a star ceiling.
Well, we got the wrong St. Brown. That's the problem.
Yeah, we did.
But that's the point that I'm making, though. Like they're the perfect example of you don't need a bona fide number 1 to make things work. You just need you can get 3 or 4 really good guys.
I agree, Frank. I do. I'm just not convinced that this front office knows how to do that.
Oh no, I'm not
I'm a little nervous. I'm a little more nervous.
You should be. I am too.
I thought I would be at this point.
I
kind of looked at this year as just like he's just signing guys to sign guys. But then when none of the signings are really hitting or working out, it's like, and none of the draft picks, none of the trades, it's like, okay, do we have a problem here? What's going on?
You would be much more encouraged if at least a couple of those 1 year deals were like, okay, we can get him on a 2 year deal and we had at least some stability here, and plug up that hole so it's not another hole. But speaking of holes, Jack, though, we've been a little all over the place. Jack, the only 2 linemen I think that we may keep next year are Teven Jenkins, health permitting, and Larry Borum. Cody Whitehair looked like fucking dog shit. What the hell is? Who did I say?
You said Larry Borum.
I'm sorry, not Larry Borum. Braxton Jones.
Cody Whitehair, bad game.
But what was so discouraging about it, Jack, was they ran the same stunt like 5 times. Braxton Jones, the rookie, was the one who was not fooled by it anytime, and Cody Whitehair just fucking followed the first guy around every single time. What are we doing? First time, okay, I get it. Maybe it's a stunt you haven't seen for a while. After 3, you still just keep following the guy. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that was very worrisome, especially because the few weeks before that he didn't look the greatest either. But you sort of gave him the benefit of the doubt. He's a vet. He's Cody Whitehair. That was a bad game by him.
Yeah, well, he's still signed through next year, I believe. But I don't know if maybe they can cut him or something. But
it's Jack. To me, it's not even about being cut. It's sort of the same way that we're talking about Jack Sanborn. Their left guard is open to me right now.
Yeah.
If someone to sign, if there's someone to, or at least bring in to compete with him, you don't just give him the job next year. He's already someone who gets hurt every single year anyway. Yeah. So that was already against him, and now he maybe the injuries are catching up. I don't know. That was bad. That's a guy you need to be a fucking rock. Like you think about bad offensive lines in Bears, Bears recent history, and guys who were still able to do their thing. You think of Kyle Long. He didn't have bad until he started getting really hurt later. He didn't have bad games. You threw him at right guard every single fucking game, and he was a rock.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I mean, you think of the whole offensive line, really. I mean, from left to right, Braxton Jones was probably the best on Sunday. We didn't hear his name as much, but center position obviously up for grabs. right guard, when Teven Jenkins went out, Schofield was absolutely fucking brutal. And then, I'm sorry, look, I know they kind of had to do it. They had to go back to Riley Reef at right tackle because, Leatherwood was just getting his ass beat.
Holy shit.
But the problem with that is, again, Riley Reef playing right tackle does nothing for you into next year. There's no development there unless they're planning on signing him to be their right tackle, which I don't.
They shouldn't be.
Sorry, they can't. But the problem is that Leatherwood needs those reps. He needs that development. Like, yeah, it was frustrating watching him getting beat up. But again, he had missed so much time, and he's playing a position that I don't really think he's played a ton. Like it goes back to what we've been talking about with this rotation shit and bringing guys in slow. And it's like, man, like we don't have time for this. There's not that much time left of the season. Now we're probably going to get more of that because they're going to be like, well, we can't, have Leatherwood playing because Justin Fields is going to get fucking murdered back there, which he pretty much was.
Well, you know what though, Jack, the one thing that was perplexing in all that, to sort of put the cherry on top of your point, why not put Leatherwood at right guard? He got reps. There's like visual evidence that he's gotten reps at guard in practice.
It goes back to what we talked about with Getsy and overall, dude. I don't understand how Cole Kmet is going one-on-one with a pass rusher. That's last year's shit. That was
inexcusable, yeah.
That's last year's shit. Where it happened with Myles Garrett. I'm sorry, TJ Watt in the Steelers game. That can't happen.
Yeah, it was bad.
I don't understand why Luke Getsy is not getting talked about in like as negatively as Matt Nagy is at this point. I'm not saying it's reached that point where it's that bad, but I feel like people are just like, that was funny. It's like, no. What is going on?
Well, especially, was that the same play where Justin and the processor there, you wanted to, it's even hard to say what I'm about to say. Maybe you wanted to speed up a little bit, but as soon as he called hike, it was just, I had a flashback of that preseason game when he was a rookie. Do you remember that when he just got the helmet clobbered? Yeah. I saw like the choppers flying, and I was in like fucking Vietnam. It was horrible.
You know what's interesting is that on these crazy plays that Justin does, like it's almost a free pass for everybody else because he's sacked, right? He's done. Son Reddick got him again, bounces off. Just takes off and almost scores a touchdown. Like an insane play that people were only talking about what he did versus why he was having to do that in the first place. And that's because the right side of the offensive line was just got killed.
Yeah.
Dude, it just hasn't. It's so frustrating because it feels like Justin Fields is literally the only thing that has worked out this season outside of Jack Sanborn, who was an undrafted rookie linebacker.
Jack, but that's why I said like how much of this has been the one score games and the almost wins. Because that's great for a young developing team. Let's make no mistake, that is phenomenal. That's what you want. That was the Lions last year. They lost like 12 games by one score, and you're like, damn, they're only a few pieces away. I don't feel that way about the Bears. So that's why I say I skew heavily towards this is just Justin Fields being Superman.
Yeah. And again, it's funny. You'd think the way we're talking, they lost 50-6. It was a 5-point game all in all. Oh, by the way, last couple of things, and then maybe we can get to our picks. Is Cole Kmet's got to be hurt, right? Something's going on there. Why is he so slow?
Maybe he looked really slow. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he was just
got caught by a defensive tackle.
Yeah, that was bad. Granted, the defensive tackle was fucking fast.
He was moving. He was moving.
He was moving. But the other thing too, though, this is what was bothersome about that, though, Jack. He didn't only just get caught. Like had it been just a phenomenal athletic play by the defensive tackle, you'd be like, damn, he's fast as shit. Like that was phenomenal. Cole Kmet heard it coming and he looked back a little bit. Yeah. Did you see that? He was
he planted his leg like he was about to start running. I'm like, dude, and how much room he had in front. I'm like, that was a great play call.
That should have been a first down.
Should have been a touchdown, probably.
Maybe, but
dude, anybody who is comparing Cole Kmet to Travis Kelce, what the fuck are we doing here? That's unacceptable.
Yeah, we can cut it out.
And then the other thing, Frank, is another hole has opened up on this roster for next season, that being Cairo Santos.
I knew it was coming.
What the fuck has happened with this dude, man?
I don't know.
I don't care that it's windy at Soldier Field. I don't give a shit about that. And I know Jake Elliott, the Eagles kicker, also missed a field goal in the same direction. But, like, dude, come on. We can't be punting at the 30-yard.
That was so fucking weird. And like, again, like I don't know what the cinematography, I don't know what you call it, the camera work was great because they caught it in real time, then being like, nah. And I was like, this is a 49-yarder, dude. What do you mean no?
I've never seen a kicker say no.
I have seen it with like 57 plus. You know, like the super and the look, hey, what are we doing? No, the wind is too. I get that. Anything under 53 in today's NFL, no way.
Now, granted, I wasn't that upset by it because obviously, you know, we're okay if the Bears lose. You know, the less points is fine. But like, man, he how many fucking extra points has he fucking missed? What's going on?
It's the extra points. But you know what though, Jack? I feel like we have so many holes. Granted, there's undrafted guys and everything you can bring in. So maybe you do it that way, but you don't commit any more money to a free agent or anything.
No,
and like,
you're not going to draft a kicker in the 5th round.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So like, you almost have to ride it out. Him being a veteran. I mean, we've even seen it with other guys like Mason Crosby is the common example of that. Like, oh, he missed 7 straight in one Packers season, and now look, he's great again. So it's like, I think you have to at this point just ride with him, because it's lost us a couple of games actually, but it has only been the extra points. He's only missed 2 field goals, and one of them was like it was like a 59-yarder. I mean, so it's like he hasn't been awful, but the extra points I feel like sting more than a super long field goal that you missed because you know, whatever.
Frank? How about this? How about counterpoint? We should be going for 2 every single time.
Yeah, but you know what though, Jack? Someone did make a good point, and I felt conflicted about it. We got our boy Mike. He helps with he didn't help. He does all the clips for us on TikTok, and I put them up on YouTube Shorts and everything, which we appreciate to the fucking fullest because he's very good at it. And one of the ones was like, you know, why are we being so concerned? I made the January 6th joke, and like, why are we being so concerned? And someone was like, well, why do you want them to win? And I was like, I see why it comes across that way. But then I thought, like, we don't want them to win. Like, especially at this point in the year, keep losing. Like, I'd hate to reel off 3 straight like a Lovie Smith team would have done. But it's like, part of me is like, just show me the mindset. So, it was hard for me to separate that because there were times, though, Jack, where if we weren't more aggressive, we may have had another win or 2, and that would have been bad. So, yeah.
No, hold on. Because I'll explain exactly. I'll answer that question because it's a great question. Frank, what I am at this point looking for with this coaching staff and the front office in general is signs of what is to come. When this team is good, I want them to be aggressive. I want them to be able to be aggressive. Right. I want them to be able to, you know, take chances on 4th down and like all of the other really good teams do. And same thing with the front office. Like, this is kind of why I'm starting to, you know, these are where these question marks are coming from with the like, so many people could look at this roster and be like, whatever, it's a lost year. But like, no, Ryan Poles, it's not like he didn't do anything this offseason. He made some investments and he took some flyers. And granted, not all those flyers, you know, not every flyer you take is going to work out. There's a reason those guys aren't on NFL rosters. But, like, the fact that, like, none of them have hit outside of his backup plan at defensive tackle, who he wouldn't have signed if Larry Ogunjobi didn't fail physical. Or it literally Jack Sanborn being brought in as an undrafted free agent. Like, yeah, it's a great signing, but if you thought he was that good, why didn't you draft him? Yeah. Like the Jimmy Butler argument, you know, that type of stuff back in the Norris Cole pick and all that shit. But regardless, this is why you know, in the moment, in the game, I understand why you want them to lose and why you want them to not be as aggressive. I get that. But the reason that I'm saying it is because at this point, am worried that when it matters, they will be a team that plays not to lose as opposed to a team that plays to win. And we saw it on Saturday with the Colts. With Jeff Saturday just failing at every single level in that second half. Yeah, because they were scared, and again, that's why I yelled about it in the Patriots game, Frank. They won, and I was still angry about it.
No, it's fair. And
come on,
My response was just that they're so talent deficient that they lose anyway. Like, I think the flip side of that is like, if we go for two in a situation or go for it on fourth down and make it, the other team is going to counter at some point when they get the ball. Like, it's not a guarantee that we win anyway. I think it's just the mindset of just throwing the kitchen sink out there. Because again, like, it's weird that we're using the Lions here, but that's what Dan Campbell did last year when they were dead in the fucking water and they didn't win those games.
Biting people's knees.
But to your point though, look at them this year now. They're doing the same exact thing. They're fucking throwing to Penei Sewell on what was it, third down or fourth down, whatever. That's the fucking nuts. That's something that a losing team does when they have nothing else to play for. But he did that shit in the fucking biggest of moments.
That's why people were rooting for them to get their first win last year. It's why so many people still, like yourself, really like the Lions and kind of where they're at. It's because there's just something you have to respect about that.
Yeah.
And I just don't. It's frustrating because I feel like, again, where the Bears are at, it's always, we're always missing something. Where now we have the quarterback, and again, I'm not saying definitively. I don't want people getting upset about this, what I'm going to say. I'm not saying definitively we don't have the coach or the offensive coordinator, or the players around him, which I don't think a lot of people would argue against that. But it feels like we are going to have the quarterback for the first time ever. And I am not convinced at this point that either A, the front office can build around him to give him what he needs to build a Super Bowl roster. Granted, he's only been one season, and cap space was an issue. They were trading players for good picks, things like that. I understand that. But the player, he did draft guys, Frank. Like, let's not pretend like he didn't. And then the coaching staff, I'm not all that convinced that they'll be the ones to push this thing over the top with Justin Fields. And that goes to Eberflus and Luke Getsy as well. I'm not convinced. I haven't seen anything where I'm like, fuck yeah, we got, we got it. So
yeah, no, it's fair. And that's what's going to make this offseason so important for them.
Yes.
I don't think, they'll be 2-year fire candidates. I think you have to give them more time than that, but this is going to be huge. Well, maybe not huge. It's going to be telling. It's going to be very telling to see, because on one degree, while these are potential red flags, it was their first draft. Sure. This is their first season. We could be getting way ahead of ourselves. And I hope that's the case. I hope, whatever they saw in Velus Jones, they either learned from or whatever, and they know how to actually evaluate wide receivers. That would be phenomenal. But this is an early sign of bad evaluation. Yep. Like these are
potential sign, an early potential sign.
Yeah, right. Exactly, because all GMs make mistakes, so we're gonna have to see how it keeps going. But again, I think this is something that we've said, and I think this is maybe why we're more cognizant of it early on, and that this was the case with Justin Fields as well, is that we've been through so many regimes. I'm 30 now. You're 29, 28?
I'm 29.
29. I mean, it's just we've been through regime after regime. Like, we've seen things, so we know how this goes now. We have a little bit more, a football sense of context of just how things operate. So when we see things, it's not panic. I don't think either of us are, but it's like, that's not exactly where I want this thing to be heading right now. Like, we're able to see things early, I think.
Yeah, I mean, can take that to almost any sport now. I mean, you think of the season that the White Sox had last year and their fans going through that, and it's like, how long can you say it's early? It's still early. It's still early.
Yep.
It's like, dude, no, I know, I know what I'm seeing here, and what I'm seeing, I'm not really all that. Like, do you need a full season of Jeff Saturday and watching him as the head coach before you're like, I don't know if this is it, or same thing with Josh McDaniels in Las Vegas, where you're like, or fuck, man, even Nathaniel Hackett in Denver, where it's like, do you really need 2 to 3 years of that before you're like, no, come on, you got to give him some, no, come on. So, and again, there are some things that we haven't really touched on that they do deserve credit for. Finding Braxton Jones, as we've been talking about, who's arguably one of their who should be their starting left tackle next year. I would be surprised if he wasn't unless something huge happens. Ryan Poles deserves credit for that. I found him in the 5th round. Great. The development of Justin Fields. I mean, that was what we talked about was goal number 1.
Yep.
And they did hit on that. And that was the most important thing to do. So they deserve a ton of credit for that. I'm just, seeing some things that I'm not exactly thrilled with. And I hope, maybe they can sort out into year 2 and beyond, So
Agreed.
I think we can kind of pause the Bears talk. We'll come back to them as we get into our Bills at the Bears game pick. But let's go ahead and get started with the rest of the NFL. Jacksonville is in New York facing the Jets on Thursday night. Little number 1 pick versus number 2 pick. Sounds like it will be Zach Wilson. Frankie, you laughed. You laughed at me when I picked Jacksonville against Dallas. You laughed in my face over this podcast. You said, how fucking dumb are you to pick Jacksonville? No, Frank didn't actually say that. But I did pick Jacksonville, and I'm going to pick Jacksonville again because Trevor Lawrence, man, people were so quick to give up on this guy.
Yeah. I'm going Jacksonville as well. I mean, he has looked really, really good. I mean, this is what I thought he and Justin Fields would look like in the league. To be quite honest with you, I thought
you just thought this Thursday night game would be where you see Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields.
It should have been, yes.
Yeah. Granted, we got to give a little credit to Zach Wilson, who did play better.
Those stats were very fluffy.
I agree, but it is what it is. Okay. There are, as Frank said, about 100 Saturday games on the slate this week. It feels very weird, but Atlanta at Baltimore is the first one. Frank, this is rough. This is a rough one because Desmond Ritter's first start did not go very well. He played okay, I thought, but Baltimore also just scored 3 points in their last game. So I'm leaning Atlanta just because I think they have a better run game. I don't know.
I'm going Baltimore. J.K. Dobbins looked all right actually the last couple of weeks.
Right. I'm going to switch Baltimore.
You're going Baltimore as well. I
coach team.
I don't know if Lamar. Do we have any news on whether I'm picking them regardless? But how the fuck are they a 9-win team? Jesus Christ, they are so ugly. They haven't been fun to watch since like week 3.
I feel like they've lost every game they've played, yet they've won 9 games.
Yeah.
No, he missed practice today. So
okay, trending downward.
Trending downward. Detroit at Carolina. Come on, we're going Detroit here.
Fuck yeah, we're going Detroit. Detroit's making the playoffs. That is going to be tough because they're not going to be a high seed. If they make the playoffs, I do not want to see them. That offense is so high octane. Even if they lose, that's a tough first round matchup for somebody.
They had a shot at the North if the Colts wouldn't have imploded. So that could have been very, very interesting. But yeah, I agree. Detroit is just one of those teams you really don't want to play because they have players that can make a lot of big plays very quickly. So
it seems like they're figuring out the defense a little bit too. They're not nearly as bad as they were at the beginning of the year. So we shall see.
Seattle at Kansas City. Seattle obviously having their own issues. I think the Geno Smith thing has kind of came back down to earth a little bit here. That being said, I mean, I just found it funny that the one game where we didn't even talk, like literally mentioned, was Kansas City Houston last week, and Houston almost fucking won. That would have been incredible.
But remember, I told you, I said I thought it was going to be closer than everyone thought because the Chiefs would just be trying shit. And I don't know if they were just trying shit, but it just felt like one of those games.
Yeah.
And it was too close. Yeah, but we're going Kansas City, right? There's no way.
Yeah. I'm going Kansas City. There's no doubt about that. Frankie, man, another brutal game. Saints at the Browns. I feel like I have to go Cleveland based off of my own rule of, better quarterback. That's kind of the route I go when I'm not sure. But Deshaun has looked like complete ass since coming back. I mean, what the hell was that against the Ravens defense that had been depleted? Like, I was a little surprised by that. That being said, I think I'm still going to go with Cleveland.
I'm going Cleveland as well. I mean, he has made marginal progress, but it's very clear that he's just not in sync with anyone, and that Russ is just still like his timing is so off. But I think they can rely on the run game pretty heavily against the Saints, and probably win. It's going to be another ugly one, like 16-7 or something. It just I don't think the Browns have it in them this year anyway to have like some of those fun Jacoby Brissett games that they had. I think Deshaun he needs a whole offseason program to get acclimated and and get going.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, just kind of everything with Cleveland. It's just a whole mess down there. But Houston at Tennessee, Frank. Listen, this is going to be so incredible when Houston wins this one. That being said, I'm picking Tennessee, but man, they died very quickly. What was it, like a few weeks ago? We were talking about how they're one of the Vrabel should be coach of the year and this and that, and this team just does not strike any fear into you whatsoever.
No, and as a matter of fact, I'm picking the upset of the week here, Jack.
Holy shit!
I think the Texans win number 2. The Titans have looked bad.
Yeah.
I'm going Texans.
Come on,
Texans with the upset.
The Texans are going to Texans it. I just love. Full disclosure, I watch. I use for games that I'm paying attention to fantasy wise, and I'm looking at I use Bleacher Report and they're like live games and things. I just love watching the Texans game where it's Jeff Driscoll runs for 6, and then it's Davis Mills throws for 2 yards, and it just rotates off that. I love that. I love seeing that.
Listen, divisional game, those are always tough. Tennessee has been bad. The next week we're talking about can the Bears get the number 1 pick? Are the Texans going to go on a little bit of a run here?
Yeah, I mean, I was rooting like hell for the Texans to win both of their last 2 games because I would have found that.
Yeah.
I mean, if the Bears get the number 1 pick, there is no, who's going to trade up for Stroud or are they trading up for? No. Teams are coming to get Bryce Young.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And they're paying an absolute premium for that. So that'd be great. Cincinnati at New England. I am going Cincinnati, and I'm mad at you because I picked the Raiders, and I was like, yeah, Frank's right. I'm going New England. And New England decided to make the dumbest play I've ever seen a New England team make ever.
Insane.
I couldn't believe my eyes. And also Cincinnati, Joe Burrow is just gone, reincarnated.
Yeah, he is. I'm going with the Bengals as well. I mean, the Patriots are as much of a clusterfuck as we thought they would be with all those offseason reports about who is calling the plays and are they really calling the plays, and it's bad. They literally only have like 4 coaches, dude. Like Bill just shredded the whole thing, and there's like no assistants. And it shows. They're undisciplined. Yeah. They're sloppy. It's ugly. I'm going Bengals.
The Giants at Minnesota. Man, I picked against the Giants on that Sunday night game, and I just don't like the Giants. I don't like how they're built. I don't like it. But Kayvon Thibodeau is just an absolute monster. That being said, I'm going to go with Minnesota. I don't know. I don't know at this point, Frankie.
Listen, I'm going with the New York Football Giants.
Okay.
And this is a team that just knows how to win football games. And the Vikings they still scream fraud to me.
I know. You know what it reminds me? It reminds me of that Packers team that finished 13-3.
Yeah.
And like the whole year we were like, no way, this team is that good. They're just not that good. And
they got bounced. Yeah.
That being said, though, I mean, you have Justin Jefferson. You can win a lot of games.
That's true.
The dude is just unfucking real. How did they miss this guy? Like, I don't understand. Like, with all of the draft analytics, like everybody knew Jamar Chase was going to be Jamar Chase.
Right.
I don't understand how so many people miss Justin Jefferson. I don't get it.
I feel like there's. I mean, he was drafted after Jalen Reagor. I know. And I mean, it's a very smaller scale thing, but we talked about this with Jack Sanborn too. I think there's times where you have too many analytics. I get they come into play for certain things. It's you overthink it. I mean, look at fucking Zach Wilson. It's the same shit. Like they have like two. If they were to draft right after the Super Bowl, I guarantee you they'd get more picks right. But they have all this time to sit and they just outthink shit.
Not wrong. You're not wrong. Okay. Well, we'll save the Bills and Bears game for last, as we always
have to, Jackie. The Bills are winning the fucking game.
Okay. All right, fine. You're right. Yeah, Bills. I'm going Bills too. I don't think it'll be all that close.
There's nothing to even break down here, except for the Bears roster. It can continue to break down.
You remember the first 5 weeks or so where we'd really get in depth about how the Bears can win this game and how they can.
There's no avenue to victory.
No, the Bills are going to kick the Bears' ass, and
Yeah, but
just be entertaining again. That's all I'm asking for. And I've had fun. This season has been the most enjoyable Bears football I've watched since 2018 at the very least.
And then before that,
2015.
The first year of Tressman.
Yeah, 2015
was the first year of Fox. No, wait, that wasn't an awful year.
No. When did they have both Marshall and Alshon? Wasn't that 2015?
I thought that was that 2015? I thought that was 2013.
2012, maybe. I don't know.
Something like that. Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's been a fun season. I've enjoyed myself. That's all I'm asking for at this point. I know we just spent about 45 minutes yelling about how the roster sucks and this and that, but
it's the duality of man, sir.
It is. Yeah.
But
Bills.
The other thing that has been really cool to see is just how Justin Fields stacks up against elite quarterbacks.
And not just fantasy-wise.
And not just fantasy. Yeah, I mean, and that's been really, and we're going to see it again. We're going to see just the eye test because Josh Allen's his stats are going to be better. It's not even going to be, but Jalen Hurts' stats were better. He didn't look like the better quarterback to me against the Bears.
No, I think his wide receivers just made incredible plays. I mean, he put the ball in
he
really
put the ball where it needs to be, but the overarching thing is when he's even against the Dolphins, it was like you see the talent deficient. I mean, the difference in talent is insane when you're going up against these good offenses. But even thinking the Vikings game when Justin played really well, and it was like we're talent deficient, but he's hanging in there. So that has been really cool to see these last few weeks, and we're going to continue to see that to close out the year.
And the way that guys talk about him post game. Hearing how Hassan Reddick talked about him and Darius Slay, and it's just like, Jesus Christ, this kid's fucking really, really good. That's awesome to see. And, one matchup that not related to Justin Fields that I'm really excited to watch again is Stephon Diggs and Jalen Johnson. Because, man, if Jalen Johnson can put back-to-back weeks like that together, I will feel much better and feel much worse about what the things we said about him in that Dolphins game.
I agree, but this is such a different matchup because I remember, I forgot what podcast it was. It was the one with Ocho Cinco on it, and they were talking to, was it Revis or Stephon Gilmore? It was one of the super fucking stud corners, of our lifetime, and they were just like, who did you struggle with the most? And it was always between B Marsh and Ocho Cinco, and they were like, look, it's easier to play physical receivers because you have to get a little physical back and you have to it's easier to anticipate because their footwork usually isn't as good. They rely on their physicality. Yeah. And he's that's not to say it's easy. It's just easier to deal with than someone like Ocho whose feet you just don't know where the fuck he's the route running is crazy.
Like Justin Jefferson now.
Like Justin Jefferson and like Stephon Diggs. Yeah. And I said all that to say, even if this may not be as telling, it's going to be hard to compare the A.J. Brown thing because he got very physical with A.J. Brown and the refs let them play, which I loved on both sides. They let both sides play. This is tough, especially with no safety help over the top and linebackers that can't cover. It's going to be, if I'm the Bills, I'm drawing up 12 targets on slants for Stephon Diggs and just letting him get some yak yardage.
I don't want to yell about it for another 40 minutes, but I do want to say I was very disappointed that Justin Fields got hit again late and didn't get the flag. I just wanted to make sure we mentioned that on the podcast because Justin talked about it too, and he's just, talking about 300-pound men coming on his back, and he paused himself, which, good catch.
But he got cross-lined or clotheslined. He got, it was just cracked across the head while he's sliding. What the fuck is happening?
I was glad he turned around and looked at that ref like, the fuck are we doing here? And no surprise, guess who it was? And Tom Sue, of course.
But you know what though? Those are some of the, like, if that happens again this week or at any point this year or even like early next year, and Justin gets a 15-yard penalty for fucking lighting a ref up, not physically, I mean like yelling at him, I'm okay with that. Something has to fucking give. Yeah. And I know the Bears have said they've sent tape to the NFL offices to like have them review it, but something has to change. That's insane that he's not getting these calls.
Especially when you look at guys like that Justin Herbert one on Sunday night a couple weeks ago when he gets tackled by Jalen Phillips. And they call roughing the pass. Like what? Is it a racial thing? Maybe. Who knows? But I thought we should mention it. You know what I want to see, Frank? I want to see a little Jackie Moon action where if he gets hit in the head again, Eberflus just pulls the whole team off the field and is like, nah, we're done here.
I'm all in. I thought you were gonna go. Was it Gridiron Gang? Not Gridiron Gang. That's The Rock. What is the Adam Sandler one?
The Longest Yard.
Longest Yard, where he gets the referee in the nuts.
Yeah. Well, that's like what he did to Cody or who was it? Was it Schofield?
Was that Schofield? I think it was Schofield. Yeah. Fucking banged him. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. Anyways, let's keep moving here. Washington at San Francisco. I'm going San Francisco. Brock, you tried to tell me, and I wouldn't listen. Brock Purdy is legit. You tried to convince me he wasn't, and I told you.
Yeah. I tried to tell you about this kid. And listen, Kyle Shanahan lives for this type of shit. He's looking at the next fucking D3 quarterback, the best D3 quarterback, maybe even the most average D3 quarterback there is, because this is when he shines. Is when he just has.
I feel like it's pretty insane that, like, you look at like Coach of the Year stuff right now about like who's at the top, right? You obviously you got Andy Reid, you got Nick Sirianni, you had Mike Vrabel, you got Zach Taylor even. But my God, like what he has been able to do with quarterbacks of this stat, like, it is insane.
It is.
What he is able to do with quarterbacks like this. I mean, it's fucking crazy. They traded up. They traded their future for fucking Trey Lance. He hasn't played a game all year, and it looks like they could never play him again and be fine.
I know.
The 49ers have the quarterback history that the Bears fucking wish they had. Like, they could just play fucking anybody back there.
Yeah.
And we can't even find one. Well, we found one now.
We found one.
But we used to be the Browns with that jersey with the tape on the back.
I know.
That people had.
But they gave him the same number every fucking time they drafted someone. That was stupid.
Agreed. Anyways, are you going Washington or San Francisco, by the way?
Oh, I'm going San Fran.
You're on San Fran. Okay. Philly at Dallas. Dallas is doing their typical thing, so come on.
Yeah.
It's Philly all the way.
Part of me just feels like division matchup.
You know what? Fuck it. Even if Gardner plays, I'm going Philly.
I'm going Cowboys. Because if I'm the Eagles, I'm not playing Jalen for 2 weeks at least. Fuck that. You can't. There's a bigger goal here to be had. You have to.
Dak is Dak.
Yeah,
man.
Dak is Dak, but I have a weird division game feeling.
Okay.
I have a weird division game feeling. I think the Cowboys are going to win this one.
Raiders at Pittsburgh. Frankie, it's happening. It's happening. We knew it was going to happen.
You're goddamn right we knew.
Pittsburgh. I'm going Pittsburgh. I'm
going Pittsburgh as well. They're keeping that 500 streak alive. Mike Tomlin.
He might be coach of the year.
He might be coach of the year.
Could you imagine if they made the playoffs somehow?
That'd be insane. Speaking of, if the Jaguars make it, Dougie P.
They may win their division.
That's what I'm saying. I know they have a real shot here. 3 games left, 1 game out, and the Titans look like fucking dog shit.
They're catching them at a real. I mean, the Colts would have had a chance themselves if they hadn't fucking just literally shit their pants.
Well, I'm going Steelers.
Me too. I mean, the Raiders don't win unless the Patriots make the absolute dump. Like, no. Come on. Devontae Adams, what are you doing? 7 points in a fucking playoff. What the fuck are we doing here? I think that players should care more about not just my fantasy team in specifically. I think they should care more about fantasy in general because you know how many more fucking dollars go into their fucking pockets because
that
of this
is
shit?
true.
Like, come on, man.
But have you ever noticed that there's no spectrum for them caring about fantasy? You're either Austin Eckler, who was like, draft me number 1, or you're Miles Sanders, who posts on his Snapchat story, like, I don't give a fuck about your fantasy team. Like, there's never an in-between. Like, yeah, I would like to help some people, but, you know, I just do what the coach tells me. Like, there's never that, like, it's one or the other.
Here's the thing. Them not performing hurts them in the long run anyways. You know, Miles Sanders, people may look at that while they're about to sign him to a contract, and they may look at that game against the Bears and be like, why did he only have 7 carries? What was going on there? You know what I mean? Like, get your ass involved and get the paycheck. And also help other people's get money anyways. But what are you going to do? Fuck them. Green Bay at Miami. Man. I mean, I'm picking Miami, but, like, dude, the Tua shit needs to stop. It's such a weird thing that's happened with this guy. It's like everyone was so against him, and then like it became cool to be against him. So then people shifted to like, no, I want to be a contrarian. So I want to say that Tua is really, really good. And now it's like everybody's like, oh no, he's awesome now. And it's like, dude, are we watching the same game? Yeah. Look at the receivers he's throwing. They're wide fucking open.
And when they're not wide open, they make insane grabs. Tyreek probably has a top 10 highlight reel, if not more than 10, of like crazy one-handed bobbling, falling backward. I mean, insane stuff from that guy. He's number 2 for me behind Justin Jefferson, by the way. I'm going with the Dolphins as well. The Packers are still – I think this just shows you how well they're built in general because their offensive line is still really good. Their running back room is really good. Receivers are on. They're still coming along. The secondary, they can't stop the run very well, but the secondary is good. So their floor, especially Aaron Rodgers, you know, he's been bad for Aaron Rodgers. He hasn't been Russell Wilson. That's bad. You know what I mean? Like, so it shows you how well they're built for them to have 6 wins and be in the playoff hunt right now, but they're still not a very good team. No. And the Dolphins are the superior team. I'm going Miami here.
I was really rooting for the Rams to win because obviously that helps the Bears' chances of getting that second pick. That being said, though, I was also laughing and finding it very funny because I've heard from Packers fans all throughout the year about how they just so badly want to be done with Aaron Rodgers and just like move on from him and play Jordan Love and this and that. And the more that they win, the longer it's going to take. And it's incredible stuff, to be completely honest with you. And don't be surprised, Bears fans, if the Bears sign a couple of these Packers offensive linemen who know Luke Getsy very well. That might be the well to sort of tap from, and I would prefer to go that route of stealing their offensive linemen.
Yeah.
Than their receivers because there's not really a lot there. Denver at the Rams. This game cannot tie, Frank. Someone has to win this game, and we need it. Arguably, we need the Rams to win more. Yep. That being said, though, I'm going to go Denver because they didn't look all that bad against Arizona. I don't know. Who are you going with?
Listen, Jackie, Russell Wilson's going to be back, and you know what that means. That man is going to win. That man is a fucking loser. All right, he's going to lose that. Oh, he's going to find a way to lose. Okay, that's what he does. Rams are winning. The Rams aren't going to lose this game, is what I should say. I'm going with the Rams.
We need the Rams to win, so I'm okay with that. I'm also okay with potentially being wrong. So I'm going to stick with Denver. I also don't want to waste the ink on changing that in the game. I truly don't fucking care.
Yeah, I know it's going to be awful.
The Sunday night game, man, that's a Sunday late game.
Yeah. I don't have much to say about it, Jack. I'm going Bucks. The Cardinals are dead in the water.
Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday night Bucks Cardinals. How are you gonna have Mike Tirico? First of all, Mike Tirico, calm down a little bit. He's trying to pump up some of the. I was listening to that Giants Washington. Checking in. I didn't watch a single second of it. I just watched the highlights on Twitter and that Kayvon Thibodeau sack. Like he freaking out. Like calm down. He needs to calm down, Frank.
Mike, here's the thing, Jack. Mike Tirico has been subjected to some of the worst football this season. Let that man get excited for a Kayvon Thibodeau. He probably had an anytime sack bet going for him. That's all you can do with the type of football that he's been subjected to commentating this year.
The Kayvon Thibodeau stuff is funny because the Knicks fans, they're obviously there's probably some Giants fans in there as well, and they got two guys who they're still not sure if it's Thibodeau or Thibodeau. So I could be wrong here. I thought Kayvon pronounces it Thibodeau, and
I don't care. Basketball coach pronounces it Thibodeau.
I don't care how they pronounce it. I'm going to pronounce it the way I want. How about that?
You tell Kayvon that to his face.
Comes on this podcast, I will. Yeah, I'm going Tampa as well. Cardinals are, dude. Come on, like there has to be some. So full disclosure, this was one of those teams Frank was mentioning as a potential team that could be very well blowing it up. DeAndre Hopkins, Marquise Hollywood Brown.
What the fuck are you gonna have to give up to get DeAndre Hopkins? He's still got a few really good years left.
They may just be taking whatever they can get depending on contract stuff. Like Zach Ertz is on IR, coming back from a major knee injury. That screams to me team that's going to – there's no way the GM survives. There's no way Cliff Kingsbury's back next year. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Either.
That being said, Tampa doesn't really look all that good either, Frank.
They don't either, but they're going to win 17-13. Brady's going to get to the press conference and act like it's the best game he's ever played. It's going to be a fucking ugly, boring game. Yeah.
Still going to win that division because that division is fucking terrible.
Bad.
Real bad. And then you have your Monday night game, Frank. And I didn't know if the Sunday night really could get all that much worse. But, man, Chargers at Indianapolis. What's the storyline here? Why is this a Monday night game? Why are the Colts always on primetime at the end of the year?
Again, I don't know what the fuck the NFL thought the Colts were going to be this year. They've been on primetime way too much.
I mean, this is wild, right? This is some crazy shit.
Taylor's out for the year now.
Yeah. What is the storyline in this game? Like thinking about it all the way back to, when the schedule makers were deciding on these games. Like what is it? I can't.
Both teams wear blue.
I guess that's true. Sometimes the Chargers wear yellow, though.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm obviously going to pick the Chargers here.
I'm going with the Chargers as well. And they're starting to dispel that, finding ways to lose. They found a few times this year ways to win.
I've been
with
impressed
their kicker
with that
as well. And then that's what been their Achilles heel.
We were convinced that Brandon Staley was going to be axed, but the more the season goes on, I don't know if that's going to happen. That being said, the Colts
somewhere really mad.
The Colts can just fold. I don't really at this point.
Do they have their first? Do the Colts have their first? Yeah, right.
They do. They'd be a top 6 pick right now. So they could get one of those. They could
trade up to get Stroud.
I mean, you think about the Bears' relationship with the Colts, Matt Eberflus, obviously, Chris Ballard, things like that. If Chris Ballard's even around, which, who knows what Jim Irsay is going to fucking shove up his nose this week and, make decisions there. So
Jesus Christ.
I'm allowed to say that, Frank, because I went through years of rooting for that team. And
I thought you were going to say years of cocaine use.
That too. Okay. How do you think I got through those years of John Fox and Mark Trestman?
That's fair.
And Nagy? So, but thank you guys so much for listening to the Bear With Us podcast, NFL Week 16 edition. Frank, we only got like 3 more weeks of this shit, man. This is wild.
Well, we got playoffs. We got playoffs.
Of course. But only a couple more weeks talking about the Bears. And then, we'll start breaking down, potential wide receivers they could trade for if Frank wants to trade for any of them. Positional grouping, maybe we'll have to rank our positions of who we want them to draft. Where we want them to spend free agent dollars. We're going to have a ton to talk about for this Bears offseason. It's just unfortunate that we're going into an offseason, a winter of terrible Blackhawks hockey, terrible Bulls basketball, who may be going into a rebuild, and then a questionable spring of White Sox and Cubs baseball.
Hey, the Cubs signed Cody Bellinger, who hasn't hit over fucking 200 in 13 seasons. But he won MVP once in 84. All right, who's fucking excited? I am.
You know what, Frank? Maybe we'll have to bust out an edition of the Corked Up podcast and talk some baseball down the road. we may have to do that if it's requested, of course, unless people want us to just keep talking
if it's
about
we're gonna have to fucking make a CPAC or something because our fucking ownership of the Cubs spends more on the GOP than they do the Chicago Cubs.
Well, that makes me question why you're upset about that. Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate it. I'm Jack. He's Frank. This is the Bear With Us podcast. Frankie, talk to you next week, man.
Later, everybody.